Okay, so I was pulling some cards here, and it turned out to be it's been quite the journey. Okay, I've had a message for quite a while that I've really needed to share, and it's been really hard because I haven't quite known where to start. It's it centers a lot around my childhood trauma, and so part of me was kind of avoiding going down that road because it's so emotional, and it will cause quite the rift in my family if I like don't say it quite right, or I don't know. But that's kind of why it's so important. I'm I've got a child, so I might need to pop in and out here once in a while. Joining me today is Archangel Michael, represented by this mop. He's a goofy guy. What can I say? This is Archangel Uriel. He is represented by yellow. That's how he shows up in my life. I've also got like a spatula over here and a painting that also revolve around Michael. But anyways, just bear with me. Okay. If you think this is ridiculous, it is a little bit, but that's what keeps it fun. Okay? I need some water. So if you will give me a second, grab yourself your own little drinky drink. I might actually refill my OJ. Let's just get into it, okay? So these cards here up at the top, the cat, the noose, the eel, and this lady that I cannot pronounce this name. Anyways, this all speaks of, well, being the scapegoat, the rebellious kid, the black sheep of the family, and having your family, people just kind of lurking around, watching you. It's kind of lurking, trying to trap you, kind of posing a threat. But part of that threat is like they kind of cause you to self-sabotage. So well, it looks like you're self-sabotaging because of your anxiety and feeling threatened. Like, it's not something that you should be like blaming yourself for, because like that's literally how you got here in the first place. So while you're feeling threatened, I've got this all up here at the top, and it's kind of the way this spread was laid out. It's like I've got this foundation here is a complete mess. And then up here, the top of this, it's like the triangle of self-actualization. Like you're up at the top, so you can look down and see self-actualization, but it's from a place of anxiety and how everyone else sees you because of the foundation that structure was built on, right? And so then in the middle, we have these cards that reference like the spirit guides and your faith, your spirituality, and all of like the guides and angels and deities that are trying to help you shift your perspective a bit and help you look down at this mess and this chaos, and they're trying to help like not only say, hey, look, we're in between you and this mess foundation. I am like having the hardest time breathing, so I might need to like take a few whiffs to open my lungs up again. And over here we've got the Two of Cups, the Ace of Wands, the Page of Cups. And I used to see myself as like the Queen of Cups, who is like very emotionally intelligent and everything, and in some places I am, but when it comes to my family, I feel too threatened to really be that open with them, you know? And so it really caused me to shut myself down because instead of having this lens of, like using my gifts to look at this situation, I instead had like the brainwashing from my childhood. And forgive me if anything I'm saying sounds too harsh or whatever, but it's just, I gotta get this message out. And the foundation is messy. I'm not gonna be perfectly eloquent. And see, this is part of this fear of this threat coming out right now. Anyways, I'm just gonna keep moving. What I find interesting is when I get decks, a lot of the times, one of the first things I do is like get myself set with a yes card and a no card, and I'll just be like, okay, give me a yes card, and I'll shake it, and oops, whatever comes out is yes or no, whatever. Hold on, I do need to grab this off the floor. Holy jeez. This is kind of ironic. Okay, let me show you what these are. Pardon me. I'm so sorry to my neighbor downstairs. Right here we have Toth. Some say Thoth, but I prefer Toth. He's one of my guides. Apparently we knew each other in Atlantis. That's the past life right there. If you don't believe this, then get out. Why are you here? Stellar Gateway activation, which is funny because I just had a funny experience with this card the other day. Gaia Gateway activation and Shambhala initiation. Anyways, I'm just gonna leave these here because I don't want to interrupt my flow too much, but they are relevant. We'll just figure out why in a little bit. I do need to fucking breathe a little. Okay, so that's my son singing in the background. And if I start sneezing, that's because I need to it's like an emotional release kind of. What the fuck is in my mouth? Okay, anyways. Where was I? My yes and no cards. I don't know why they keep interrupting me when I'm trying to talk about that. Heart of Source, this was my no card, okay? I think it's just the throat chakra trying to fuck with me. Heart of Source. All-encompassing love, unconditional acceptance, and serenity. So what's kind of funny is that this is part of the lens, the healed lens, which I'm looking down at this situation with. But it's the no card talking about unconditional acceptance. So the way I grew up, I didn't receive unconditional love. And I think this is kind of referring to maybe I never will, or it's just me finally recognizing that this wasn't love. This wasn't a loving foundation. This wasn't a sturdy foundation. It was the noose wrapping around my neck. I'm going to turn on some music here, because this is kind of this song. So let me just need some music in the background. Okay, will you hold my phone? Thank you so much. Okay. Just need to recenter myself. Okay, I was going to share quick little. I will probably be pulling some of my things that I've journaled out here as we go along. I'm just gonna write this, or I'm gonna read this. Okay, now this music is just too much, so I might turn it off actually. Or I'll just turn it down. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna start reading this. Hekate's here also, that's why I bashed my knee. Sometimes that's how she shows up. I don't know if you can see, but sometimes Uriel will just kind of hover around above my shoulder and it'll kind of look like a shadow, but if you've ever seen what an actual angel looks like, it's him. And it really kind of threw me a while ago because I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, anyways, focus. Okay, so this is something I wrote forever ago. Why do they push me away and mock what I say, but somehow miss me when I'm gone? And then they tell me I was wrong. Yeah. They never tried to understand, never took my hand, and when I took a stand, I was wrong. What was wrong? I made it all about me, apparently, and what hurts so much is I gave up everything, trying to make them happy. They can't see what I've given up, as I never showed them in the first place. What they saw slip through the cracks, boy, I paid for that. And they told me I was a disgrace. I can't get anything right. No matter how much I lie and how much I hide, I was never one to fit in. And now, still they point out my sins. What they're most jealous of is that I don't give a fuck. They're so scared of their reputation. But sometimes, the things we hate the most about other people is the things we hate about ourselves. So scared of being judged, and they sit around and judge. But at least their daughter's a whore. They fucked up, but she fucked up more. Where's our apology? They say. You know, you made a big mistake. And I said, who the fuck do you think you are? You're the reason I'm covered in scars. Why do you need an apology from me when you fucked up my childhood? It's your fault I didn't turn out good. Apology? I'm still waiting for mine. I was 3. I was 4. Shut your mouth. There's more. I was 5. I was 6. I was still playing with sticks. I was 7. I was 8. I'd accepted that this was my fate. I was 9. I was 10. Again and again and again. 11. Then 12. The next few years were full of hell. I was turning 13. And you mocked me for anxiety. Told everyone that it was puberty. I don't know why you hated me. Most of my childhood's a blur. It's empty. And my memories are feeling hated, manipulated, isolated, humiliated. I couldn't take it. I couldn't talk about it with anyone because he was your son. All you seem to care about is moving on. So now I'm in the wrong. I know that part of you is hoping that my fuck-ups will cancel his out. But my baby boy is my pride and joy. He's the sun you stole from my skies. He gave me the light you ripped from my eyes. You don't like that I'm bold and hard-headed and I go my own direction. But what the hell do you expect? Your way is nothing but a shipwreck. And I'm not going down with you. And if you don't like how I'm swimming, at least I'm not drowning anymore. I wrote that a while ago. And that was kind of the beginning of me looking down at this situation here. And I'm gonna try to go a little bit more into what all of this means here. Right here we have the Ten of Wands reversed. We've got the Nine of Swords. And this is the Four of Swords reversed. Then over here, this is like a little group right here. And over here we have the Chariot. Six of Pentacles reversed. The Three of Pentacles, the Magician. This is the Eight of Cups. When I look at this, I'm still learning this deck, but it's a Lord of the Rings deck, and what's kind of funny is I've been having so many people reference random things in my life about the Lord of the Rings, and it's like one of those things that I'm like, what in the world? It kind of came out of nowhere. I never watched, I mean, I guess I watched the movies and I've read a couple of the books, but I don't really remember it all that much. But it's very relevant. Anyways, this is the Eight of Cups. Cups is referring to water, emotions, like the water element, emotions, relationships. See, I have 8 siblings. So that's what I think this is. And then this was sitting right over top of the Ten of Swords. Which, the Ten of Swords is heartbreak. That's like, the Ten of Swords and the Three of Swords are very, very similar. Very painful, emotional experiences. Very hard situations where you've just been stabbed through the heart. Or just feel like you've been stabbed by 10 swords. And it's like the lowest of the low, one of the most painful experiences ever. And that's kind of what my childhood and what me and my siblings have gone through and me and my family has gone through. But there's a lot that me and my siblings have experienced that people don't know about. We often kept to ourselves, didn't really say anything to anyone because we were always kind of like in the spotlight in the worst ways. A lot of people saw my family trying to like hold our shit together and look a certain way and look happy and loving, and there were people that didn't like that, and there were people that were waiting for any chance they could get to like point out what was wrong with us. Because they were probably threatened by the image of like such a happy, huge family. I'm not really sure. That's just a tangent. So that's kind of what my whole family kind of fell victim to these bullies, which ironically were like the leaders at the church that me and my siblings grew up in. So we were kind of raised, our like foundation, our spiritual foundation was just built on being judged and bullied. And we didn't really have anybody we could turn to about it because there wasn't really anybody, like our friends that we had, that we like grew up with, that we went to Sunday school with, they were just either they were in the family that was trying to like ruin us for some reason, or they were like friends with the family. And so like we were never truly accepted into any of the circles anywhere. So me and my siblings grew up with like very few friends. We really only ever had each other. And that's one of the reasons why like talking about this is really hard for me, because like that's like all I had as a child. childhood. Like, that was the only thing that kept me safe. That was the only place I felt like accepted and loved and whatever. And like, I would just hate for like this, all the swords to come between that and like my siblings, because we've been through so fucking much together that only we could understand. And another thing about having that many siblings is we weren't getting love and acceptance from our church. And at home, there was fucking 9 kids. My parents we were very low income household, so my dad was just working his ass off constantly. My mom was like out working in a garden trying to like grow food for us to eat. So we kind of only really had each other, but like we didn't have like a parent that was like right there constantly. If we spent time with our parents, we were most likely like out working in the yard, helping in the garden, helping take care of the house, and helping make dinner and stuff. So, and like a lot of the times where we've actually genuinely got noticed and pointed out and made the spotlight was like if we had done something wrong, or like we had forgotten to do a chore, or we did something wrong while we did the chore. And like, so I know a lot of my siblings and I have just kind of, we were like the gifted kids, but also felt so criticized a lot, I guess. I'm not sure what the right word is. Just felt like we were under constant scrutiny by everybody, our parents, our church family. And so, anyways, with that, let me refocus here. It was really hard to get noticed, and a lot of us, once in a while, like, what's it like having all those brothers? It was hard because a lot of the times, some of us were just too tired and didn't have the energy to try to like get attention or get in the spotlight, or like if we did, it was because we'd done something stupid. So we just kind of tried to keep to ourselves as much as we could, and some of us tried to like perform well, pick careers where we would get love and praise. We would try to do whatever another sibling got praise for doing, because we're like, okay, if they get noticed by doing that, maybe we can do that. And the train's coming, so this might get interesting anyways. And like my time in the spotlight is kind of interesting because that's where the story of who I am somehow got manipulated and twisted so badly that nobody knows who I am anymore. And if they think they do, it's because they got a version of this story that wasn't true, or it was like twisted a little bit. So somehow I have kind of ended up looking like the bad guy. And let's see if I can read this. I've been working on like a little documentary autobiography. I don't really know. Let me see. I was supposed to be the success story. You know, that age-long Christian fable where no matter what level of trauma and suffering you've endured, your faith in Jesus makes you strong. You conquer your trials, you forgive, you restore the family to how it was. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here just this once and say I think they meant how it should have been. Well, the success story didn't turn out the way that they'd hoped it would, and while behaving like any child that had been through what I had been through, that had undiagnosed PTSD, unprocessed trauma, and the most chaotic family on the planet, the story quickly turned into the girl that couldn't keep her room clean, who stayed up too late, who was overly hormonal, nothing like her sister, and eventually that morphed into the rebellious child that won't listen to anything her parents say. So, when that's what you've come to be known for, you just try to make yourself as small as you can so that people will have less and less to talk shit about. My son is doing something, I'll be right back. Alright, he got himself stuck. Alright, so I was saying, I didn't turn into the story they wanted. And of course, nothing was really intentional because everybody is just living for their own survival. And I don't know if you're in the spiritual community, you probably hear about the ego quite a lot. Now, the ego isn't like what you think about in terms of like pride and like somebody that's egotistical and like super full of themselves. It's more of the ego in the psychological sense, where you have like the id, the ego, and the super ego. And the ego is what is in between like your subconscious and like your immediate instincts, if I'm remembering that right, your immediate reactions to things. It's what like keeps you in check, and it's what you like build your foundation off of. And it's like your core foundation of who you are. But like a lot of the times, I mean, no, the world is, there's no way you can just end up with a perfect healthy ego. It's just like that's where like when the foundation is built with like broken pieces, the ego is broken. So are you, but not in like you can't function or whatever. I'm not saying that. It's just that's where a lot of mental health issues come from, is when our structure and our foundation doesn't have the right pieces, that it's not built well. It's not built it's not stable or secure, and it's prone to crumble, or it's prone to have a large defense wall, so that because they know it's not stable, so they have to have defenses up because they can't let anybody get too close, because if you poke it just right, it'll just fucking crumble. So that's where the defense wall comes up. Sometimes this structure will be built like it'll be complete shit, but it'll be facade, so it'll have like a really nice paint, it'll have a nice exterior, but it won't really be anything, any sort of stable building at all. But what's interesting is when it's all in what like the person building this foundation, it's like what they are taught is like the most important thing. And like the ego, the super ego and whatever, it's like what you're building for your own needs. And this is on a very like subconscious core level, not like something that you're rationally building. This is just what your brain has made for you. That makes any level of sense there. So like if people make a building that's a complete facade, it's because that's kind of how they were taught, because that's their defense wall. Because if people see that it looks fine and dandy on the outside, nobody's going to get too close and peek in the window and see the reality. And what's really devastating for the people that have that defense wall is when their children do not. And it's equally as devastating when the child that's got a huge defensive wall set up because they feel like they're crumbling is the child of the parent with the bright, shiny wall, you know? So I'm gonna pull out another part of what I've written here. If I can find it. It's gonna take me a second to find this because this whole book is literally how I've been processing everything. So I might have to flip around. Let's see. I think I gotta go back. Yeah, we'll start here. I kind of started writing this when I wrote this and thinking about how a couple of the words that really trigger me the most after being gaslit by Christianity for my whole childhood. I just started writing and we'll see how this turned out. We have relationships with different gods, like a parent with different children. Maybe that's why I automatically can't trust them. Being seen defines that which is seen. I heard that from Lisa Lee. Love you. I was never seen, not by anyone with good intentions. I don't know what good intentions look like. The only people that have had my best interests, they came to me, and I never saw them again. This is literally my journal, so if it sounds messy, it's because my mind is messy. That's life, and that's completely fine. Don't ever let feeling messy scare you away from showing yourself. That's something I'm really learning the hard way here. Anyways, not being seen for who you truly are. In the end, you end up kind of losing yourself. And then when you have people come into your life very, very briefly that you know don't have all these expectations of you and you can finally feel safe showing who you are, and then they are in your life for 2 seconds and leave, that's grief. That's a different kind of grief. And you're like, oh my god, wait, come back though, because I actually could be myself with you. Don't leave me here in this. I didn't know how to build a foundation that should have been built for me. Mine was ghetto rigged by an 8-year-old. And how cruel is it to leave a child to build that foundation themselves? And when, despite their best efforts, it gets demolished, time and time again the child starts over. And when she's almost got it, someone runs in and smashes it. And this just reminds me of the phrase, like if we built something with Legos and our little sibling took it apart, we'd be like, Mom, they just destroyed this thing we worked hard on. And the parent would be like, they're Legos, that's what they're for. You build things and you take things apart. Anyways, whatever you build, pour your entire soul into building, like baking a cake, sewing a quilt, a child building Legos, writing a book. If someone runs in and destroys it, that's devastating. If you drop that quilt in a pile of shit, drop the cake just before the wedding, you get the point. It's devastating. Something you pour all your heart and soul and time and effort into building. And in this case, what I was building, working so hard for, was just like a foundation for myself and my safety, because I didn't realize it, but I I was in fight or flight. I was a victim to trauma and stress, and my nervous system never knew. It didn't know how to shut off. It couldn't find a safe place because of the trauma that happened to me. I learned when I was 3 years old that like my family wasn't entirely safe. I learned that I had to be very cautious who I was around. I had to be very cautious of who I was too nice to, too close to. I learned that my body didn't belong to me. And there's a lot of things that go into that, but I'm just gonna keep reading here. Even as a child, while I'm building this foundation, people are coming along and destroying it. I picked up the tools I had and I started over. Even when I only had broken pieces to build with. I will say this is CBD, literally. It's the only thing that will stop an asthma attack for me anymore. I did my best to make it work, and it was always destroyed. Or mocked, or I was scolded for doing it wrong. I was never seen. Or I was, but I was ignored because what I offered wasn't good enough. And despite being abused, I wasn't protected. But he was. He was. Nobody knew the details of my life, but I did. Yet what I built as a result was criticized. I was taught to do it a different way. I was wrong if I didn't do it that way. But eventually I stopped trying to build my defenses with Swiss cheese. Growing up in Christianity itself, it doesn't give you a firm foundation. It's founded on manipulation. It creates a learned helplessness and a place of chronic projection. There's no respect for boundaries, but it's a cycle, the blind leading the blind. Because if you have an issue, if you struggle with something, it's because of temptation, it's because of the devil, it's your sin nature. It goes back to Adam and Eve. There's always somebody else to blame. And you can't take the responsibility for yourself. You're just like, you give it to Jesus. So you have these like issues within yourself that you can blame on somebody else. And then just act like if you ask the Lord to forgive you, that it cancels it out. But it doesn't. You still have consequences. Even if Jesus does forgive you, that doesn't mean the people you hurt will. That doesn't mean even if they do forgive you, that you won't have consequences. Because the thing is, forgiveness is not for the person that harmed you. Forgiveness is for your own healing. Forgiveness is letting go of like the anger and the bitterness. Forgiveness is deciding that that's not going to be hurting you anymore. And this isn't something that once you decide, yeah, okay, we're good, I forgive it, whatever, and move on. You don't just move on. Because sometimes it's a daily cycle. Sometimes you'll be good for a week or two, and then you'll have a week where you're completely depressed. And you have to go through this cycle a lot. So because you're rewiring your brain to be healed. But healing isn't just like a switch you turn on. It's a cycle. And this is like a visual that I have heard a lot. You hear about ending this cycle and whatever. But the thing is, you don't really break a cycle so much as you like move up to a place where you can look down and see it's a spiral. But it's 3D. And that's what like the self-actualization triangle actually is. I'm gonna see if I can demonstrate this for you the best I can with this charger. So picture that the cycle is actually kind of more of like a spiral here, like such. And so then as you move up, you'll be able to see what's kind of going on below you. But at the same time, it's kind of going down because you have to dig deeper. Let me get back in the channel. What the fuck is going on right now? Okay, so anyways. I don't really know what that tangent was. I'm sure it'll come back, but I'm gonna keep reading and we'll see. See, gratitude and isolation are trigger words. So is releasing and let it go, trust and have faith. Because the foundation that, or the tools I was given to put in my foundation were tools that were like, just let it go if something bothered you, or just trust in God and He'll make everything better. He'll work everything out for good. You should be grateful for what you have. And these statements, they just make you feel frustrated and unheard and invalidated. You don't ever get like the justice that your soul needs. And I'm not talking about the judicial system in the United States. I'm talking about justice for yourself, for your healing. And when your pain is diminished and not seen, it doesn't ever get justified. So, let me show you. What happens when the trainer, the leader, the caretaker doesn't know what the right thing is? When they only know what might create peace and harmony, what might help the family. And this is what I was chugging along to. That's what I was chugging along to so that I could have the fellowship of my family. I was going to be like the magician, the success story that saved it all. And this is what the result was. Devastation and heartbreak. And am I to blame? But the thing was, I was sexually assaulted. I was abused starting when I was 3 years old. My abuser didn't face any kind of consequences until I was 13. That's 10 years. That is a decade of being abused repeatedly. Not only that, it was my entire childhood. And so when it came to the light, and when my parents realized that they needed help, they needed to get help because they weren't sure what to do. But at the same time, They were separated from that by what their foundation had built them. Silence does not negate peace, and a crowded table doesn't negate harmony. Sometimes peace and harmony are not the right thing, because everyone will have a different idea of peace, and peace for me is not peace for you. We are all creatures of survival, but when the leader's desperate pursuit of peace is actually hell for the child through operant conditioning, the child has to choose between the right thing for them, especially when they have no clue what that looks like, and the love from their parent. What do you expect them to choose? How do you expect a child to even understand that choice? Especially a 5-year-old. Right here, this little girl. I don't know how clearly you can see, but that's a picture of me and my little brother. And, you know, when I pull out photos of myself that little, and I actually take a moment to realize that that little girl was suffering this abuse, and she had no idea what to do. How do you expect? Why would you expect a child victim to save themselves? So in order to survive, I mean, I followed the leader. I followed my parents. I chose the road that my caretaker had deemed best, but I didn't know that how badly that would affect me, and neither did they. I mean, they weren't trying. They only knew what they knew, and they did what they could. But that doesn't make the result the peace and the harmony and happiness. Because at the end of the day, they wanted their family back together. Because they had, I mean, when you think about my mom, that her family was her legacy, and it's like that quote from Hamilton. What happens when you plant seeds in a garden that you never get to see? Actually, I think I'm gonna just, I wrote a little bit. This is kind of like a spin-off of one of the songs in Hamilton that I wrote, and I'm feeling very bold to read this. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. Is this where it gets me? On my feet? Several feet ahead of me? I see it coming. Do I run, or fire my gun, or let it be? There's no beat, no melody. Burr, my first friend, my enemy. Maybe the last face I ever see. If I throw away my shot, is this how you'll remember me? What if this bullet is my legacy? What is a legacy? It's like planting seeds in a garden that you never get to see. I wrote some notes at the beginning of a song someone will sing for me. America, you great unfinished symphony, you sent for me. You let me make a difference. And that's where Hamilton gets shot. Okay. Because his family and the structure that he'd worked so hard to build somehow, in the blink of an eye, it came crashing down in the most brutal way. And it was his own family that was shooting him. It was somebody that he thought was his best friend. And then the song turns to Burr's point of view. I strike him right between his ribs. I walk towards him, but I'm ushered away. I hear wailing in the streets. Somebody tells me you'd better hide. They say Angelica and Eliza were both at his side when he died. Death doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. It takes, and it takes, and it takes, and history obliterates. And every picture it paints me in all my mistakes. When I aimed at the sky, I may have been the first one to die. But I'm the one that paid for it. I survived, but I paid for it. And the thing about this is that we are all a little bit both Burr and Hamilton. And by that I mean sometimes the victim becomes the villain. Sometimes it's the victim that pays for it. And this is kind of the story of like trying to figure out how to word this. Because a life doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. It doesn't care about the family and the legacy you're trying to make. Because at the end of the day, it's like you don't have control over how other people see you. But for once, you just want to be able to build something that you're so proud of. And you want to be able to show something off. Hey, Uriel. And it's like my parents had all these kids. They were building something that they were so proud of. And then in the blink of an eye, a shot was fired. And suddenly their legacy was just like an ugly painting. Suddenly their family was just everything they'd worked for. It was only where they fell short, it paints you in all your mistakes. And so this is like, I know that this is where my parents are coming from. But I aimed my pistol at the sky because I wanted it to end peacefully for everyone involved. And I survived theoretically, but I still paid for it. I was too young and blind to see. You didn't know that the world was wide enough. So I started writing this to like, I wrote, teach me how to say goodbye. I guess I'll never see you on the other side. Once again, I'm running out of time. Maybe not this time, maybe another time. What if I have no other life? Once again, I'm writing like I'm running out of time. I'm running out of time. We only get so many tries. If the seeds don't grow, the garden dies. Burr, you're running out of time. Don't waste your time. You've been granted another try. We do not have to duel in this life. You great unfinished symphony you sent for me. Your soul sent for me. We are the legacy. We've already been history, so do we run and let it be? I can't let this be. Not when you sent for me. Burr, be free. Burr, I forgive you. Burr, let my family be. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they can. But you and I can see. Put his soul at ease. Let him finish the symphony. Let this be our legacy. I know your soul remembers me. You and I have history, but it's time we end the symphony. Teach me how to say goodbye. So what does that have to do with anything, you might ask? That's the train. It's probably gonna wake Casey up, but for me the train means that I'm like headed in the right direction. Slowly and surely we get there. So what is the symphony? What's the legacy? For a long time I thought I had to rescue my family and that they needed me. But that resulted in me carrying the burdens of everybody. Yeah, there you go. So you just woke up. Gonna have to pause. Hold on.